Welcome to Notable Approvals. I am attorney Amanda Shaffer. Today we have an interesting case for you about Asylum and the exception to the 1-year filing deadline. For those of you who don't know, in order to qualify for Asylum, you have to file within a year of entering the US. If you don't, there are a few, very few exceptions to the 1-year filing deadline, and they're very difficult to obtain. And this case is notable because we were able to prove the exception to the filing deadline for this client. Before I get into how we did that, I'll quickly tell you a little bit about her asylum claim. And essentially, this case came down to whether she was eligible for the exception or not. There wasn't much of a dispute on her claim for asylum. Oh, excuse me. So this client was a native and citizen of the Gambia. She entered the U.S. with a tourist visa or B2 visa on January 4th, 2011. And her claim was based on her membership in the Soninke tribe, as well as a particular social group of Gambian women who were unable to conceive. So when she was a baby, she was subjected to a practice called female circumcision or female genital mutilation, or FGM for short. If you're not familiar with the practice, it is something that happens in many parts of the world still, unfortunately. It's a horrific practice that is done for a variety of reasons. And in her family, in this client's family, they did it because it was supposed to make her fertile, and don't even remember all the reasons. But essentially what happened, she did get married, and then she couldn't conceive. And the reason she couldn't conceive is because they botched the FGM when she was a baby. She had no memory of it, but she knew she had it done because the doctor told her, and then all of the medical problems that resulted from it. But the way her family saw it, and her tribe, is that she couldn't conceive because the circumcision wasn't done properly, and it needed to be done a third time. And in addition, because she couldn't conceive, she was told she was brought a lot of shame upon her family. They would beat her, they would threaten to disown her. And this is a woman who has very little education, so she was not even literate. And it was very scary for her, because if they disowned her, she'd be on the street. She had nothing. But it was really when they were like, we gotta try to circumcise you again, that she fled the country. So she came to the US, like I said, in January 4th, 2011. Now, she's been having these medical problems her entire life, unfortunately. But back home, they didn't exactly have a way to treat the problems that she was having. They didn't really know much about it. Again, they thought that she was infertile because it wasn't done right, not because it was done wrong. So when she came to the US, about 6 months after her entry, she went to the hospital, and because of problems that arose from the FGM. And at the hospital, they said, look, you need surgery. You have some real serious things going on, with names that I don't even know how to pronounce, like medical conditions. So anyways, so she had her first surgery in August of 2011. This is 8-9 months after she entered the US. She was in the hospital for 2 days, and then she was pretty much bedridden after that. She said she couldn't work. There's very few days that she could even leave her house. Her 1 year of entry into the US comes and goes, which was January 3rd, 2012. And she had not filed for asylum. A couple months later, March 2012, she's back in the hospital for the same thing. And then she finally starts to feel a little better in September of 2012, finds a lawyer, does the application, and it's received by USCIS in October of 2012. Remember, it's not the day that you mail your application to USCIS, it's the day they receive it that counts as the date that they look at for the 1-year filing deadline. Always important to remember that. So basically, after she files the asylum application, she continues to have medical issues, the same types of medical issues. And she ends up going back to surgery I think it was 2 more times, once in 2013. She was scheduled in 2014, and we actually talked about this because she missed the surgery because she couldn't read and she went the wrong day. So she had the second one in 2015, the third one in 2016. And we had to prove to the judge that she qualified for the exception. So the exception to the 1 year filing deadline says that there's 4 parts. 1, you have to establish that there's an extraordinary circumstance. 2, you have to show that this extraordinary circumstance was directly related to your failure to file on time. 3, this extraordinary circumstance could not have been caused by you. You can't have intentionally done something that made it late. And then 4, even if we prove an extraordinary circumstance that happened within the 1 year or was present in the 1 year, you still have to show that you filed within a reasonable period of time after the 1 year. And that's what kind of made this case difficult. There was no doubt that she had medical problems. But remember, her surgery was in August 2011. She didn't file for a little over a year after that. So that was really what the hardest part was. Now, the law talks about what's an extraordinary circumstance, and it does list serious illness or disability on there. And it does say that you have to have that thing present in that 1 year, which we clearly did in this case. So we were really mostly looking at this period of reasonableness, the 10.5 months that it took her from the 1 year, the date of the 1 year anniversary of her entry into the US until the date that she filed. And this is a client, again, who wasn't really educated much. She was having a really hard time, even with an interpreter with her for her language, understanding the questions. And we were lucky we had a very patient judge that day. But essentially, we were able to show, like, she couldn't work. She couldn't get out of bed. She had trouble getting information in the first place. She didn't know what was going on. And, the fact that it was 10.5 months later, look at the fact that the problem still persisted even then. It's persisted even that day. I think the trial was like a month or 2 after her last surgery. So we were able to prove to the judge that this was a persistent problem that was so bad. For the most part, she was bedridden. And because of that, we were able to get her asylum granted. And if we hadn't proved the exception to the 1 year filing deadline, then she would have still been eligible for withholding of removal. However, with withholding of removal, there's a higher burden of proof. It's harder to get, and you can't get a green card. So our client, she now does have a green card because a year after she was granted asylum, she was eligible to apply for permanent residence, and we were very, very happy for our client. That is all for notable approvals. Join me tomorrow where I will be discussing another exciting case. Can't even talk today. Case. And check out our Facebook, YouTube, follow us, like us, you don't miss any more, and also to catch our past episodes. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.